please. The Honorable George Armstrong presiding.
Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome everybody to the final round. Just one more to go, and we know you've got a lot of practice in so far today. This is going to be the best round yet. Before we get started, I'm going to have our scoring judges introduce themselves. Perhaps if we could start with Mr. Strummers.
Thank you, Judge Armstrong. My name is Greg Strummers. I'm a municipal attorney. I do a lot of trial practice of municipal law, and I really look forward to your final round today. Good luck.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Davidson. It's been my pleasure to have been a judge at all of these events going back to the very first one. And it's truly one of my favorite days of the year because I just really get a kick out of watching you future lawyers in action. Seen a lot of good rounds, seen some familiar faces, and so want to wish you good luck.
Good afternoon, I'm Tim Donlin, Sheriff of St. Clair County, and it's again my pleasure to welcome you here and see some of the same kids come back year after year. It's a lot of fun to watch you mature and grow and testify better every year. And for those that are seniors, congratulations, good luck in college next fall.
Good afternoon, I'm John Adair. Really look forward to the third round because you're polished and done it a couple of times, and so everybody's relaxed, take a deep breath, and enjoy and have some fun.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Yarrick. I'm an attorney, and I currently work at Cooley Law School as their Academic Resource Center coordinator, helping law students make it through law school. I'm looking forward to everything that you guys are going to do this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike West. I've been a trial attorney in St. Clair County for over 29 years. I've tried and handled hundreds of criminal cases, including murder cases, so this is an interesting case for me. It's been fun so far. I'm going to be watching very carefully.
Thank you. And I should also introduce, we have with us Deputy Fleming from the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Donlin very generously makes this something available to the deputies to volunteer their time with. He's here on his own time, so we do appreciate his volunteering as a bailiff for our tournament today. And also with us in the courtroom is Jay DeBoyer, our county clerk. He's been doing a lot of running today and definitely helping us out with the scoring sheets. And we'll ask both of them to give comments as well at the end. My name is Mona Armstrong. I'm not a judge in real life. I'm a senior assistant prosecuting attorney, and I have been handling major crimes in St. Clair County for the last almost 17 years. So I've definitely been where you guys are sitting. I can tell you I didn't do it in high school, so you're a lot of steps ahead of me. And you should be very proud of the fact that you've worked very hard, and I know you've put the time in. So we are very anxious to see what you're going to do. And with that, I will ask, first I'll ask if anybody has your cell phone, if you could make sure it's off or silenced before we get started. And I'll ask plaintiff's counsel to please place your appearances on the record.
My name is Madison Southers, and I'm representing the prosecution. I will be giving the opening statement, and I'll be direct examining Eric Coretta, who is playing Detective Steven Tyler, and cross-examining Thomas Osiski.
My name is Hal Sloniak, and I'm representing the prosecution. Today I am direct examining Travis Younger, who is portraying Dr. Aaron Dre, and I will be cross-examining Dr. Lee Helm.
My name is Caitlin Bobick, and I am representing the prosecution. Today I'm going to be direct examining Kelsey Simon, who is going to be playing Pat Nugent, and I will be cross-examining Alex Rose.
Thank you, counsel. For the defendant, could you please place your appearances on the record?
Hello, I am Alexander Will. I am a defensive attorney. Today I will be directing Alex Rose, crossing Pat Sirius, and providing the defense's closing argument.
Hello, my name is James Boland. I will be directing Dr. Levon Helm, who is Brendan Fair, and I will be crossing Dr. J, and I will also be giving the opening statement today.
My name is Paula Carmichael. I will be Thomas Dukosiski's attorney, which is played by Zach Nicholson, and I will be crossing Detective Stephen Tyler.
Thank you, counsel. So with that, I will ask plaintiff, are you prepared to make your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Madison Southers, and I am representing the state of New Michigan. Today, my colleagues and I are going to lead you down a path of evidence that will unquestionably prove that the defendant, Thomas Osiski, murdered Martin Sirius. We are all here today to help make our community safer by taking this cold-blooded killer off the streets. The state will prove today, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant, Thomas Osiski, is guilty of second-degree murder. The elements of second-degree murder include malice and committing the crime without just cause or legal excuse. The defendant here fits this description perfectly. The defendant, during a fit of rage, took the life of the loving father and accomplished musician, Martin Sirius. On the night of May 31st, 2009, Martin was found dead with a bullet wound to the back of his head. On this deadly night, the defendant entered Martin's home through the front door, became angry, shot Martin in the back of the head, dropped the gun, and ran out the back in an attempt to flee the scene. To his surprise, Martin's daughter, Pat, was in the backyard swimming in the pool and caught the defendant running out of the house. The state will show with the evidence provided that the defendant had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill his former bandmate, Martin Sirius. This man sitting before you today was found at the scene of the crime, had blood, gunpowder residue on his hands, and his DNA and fingerprints were found on the gun. Also, the week prior to May 31st, the defendant had possession of the 9mm pistol that ended Martin's life. The evidence is undeniable. The defendant and Martin were band members of Cirrhosis and had recently booked a reunion tour that would bring in $1 million, which the defendant here badly needed. The defendant's home was in foreclosure. He was in enormous credit card debt and was in desperate need of the money to be gained through the tour. However, when Martin canceled the tour, the defendant became visibly hostile and aggressive toward Martin. The weekend prior to the murder, the defendant and Martin had a heated argument. Martin's daughter, Pat, was present, along with the defendant. During the argument, Martin pulled out his 9mm pistol and started waving it around. The defendant grabbed the gun and took it with him, as witnessed by Martin's daughter, Pat. When the defendant returned on May 31st and realized he was not going to persuade Martin into going forward with the tour, he became enraged and shot and killed his former bandmate, Martin Lewis Sirius. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, the defendant sitting before you today is not a model citizen, but rather a violent and manipulative man who has ridden the coattails of Martin throughout his career. Future evidence and witnesses will prove his guilt. In a later testimony, we will hear from the lead homicide detective verifying that this was, beyond a reasonable doubt, a death by murder. Again, confirming this fact, we will hear from a renowned doctor and forensic expert reiterating the proof of a homicide. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you to listen closely to all the evidence provided today in this trial. I am confident that you will find the defendant, Thomas Osiski, guilty of second-degree murder. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defendant, would you like to make an opening statement, or would you like to reserve?
I'd like to make an opening statement.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is James Boland, and joining me today are Alex Will and Paul Carmichael, and we will be representing the defense. Today we are representing Duke Osiski. Duke is facing the charge of murder in the second degree by the people of Rockford, New Michigan. The charge is made up of two elements. The prosecution must prove both of these elements beyond all reasonable doubt. They must prove that on May 31st, 2009, that the defendant shots he used with a 9mm pistol and that he did kill him with the 9mm pistol. As a defense, we have to prove nothing. The burden of proof rests solely in the hands of the prosecution. However, the evidence provided by Thomas Dukosiski, Alex Rose, and Dr. Levon Helm will provide ample reasonable doubt to this case. In fact, it will show that Duke couldn't possibly have killed Martin. First, the court will hear testimony from Dukosiski. The court will learn about the long-lasting friendship that Duke had with Martin and that they were in a band together dating back to the 1980s. Duke will testify that he never had any intention to kill his former bandmate and that in the combination of alcohol and drugs that Marty was constantly using and his dog personality could have led to his bandmate's death. Duke will also testify to the court that he gave the gun that killed Martin to Pat on Memorial Day because he doesn't even like guns. Then he will also testify that the last time he saw his former bandmate was on Memorial Day when he gave the gun to Pat, and that he even found his own bandmate in his recording studio on March 31st, 2009, dead. Next, the court will hear testimony from Alex Rose, a personal friend of Pat who has been for a long time. The court will learn through her testimony that Pat and Martin had a tense relationship during the months leading up to their upcoming tour, and that Martin always had a bottle of Jack Daniels during that time, which even may have increased the tensions. She will testify that Pat had a horrible family life prior to meeting Martin, and that this is like his first biological dad, so he had a foster family even before then. She will talk about the fact that Pat knew about the insurance policy many weeks before the actual death of Martin, and that Pat was actually mad that Martin was giving the house to the Save the Music Foundation as part of his will. She will also testify that Duke isn't the kind of person who seemed like he would kill someone and that he did not have the gun on Memorial Day. Finally, you will hear testimony from Dr. Levon Helm, an expert on abnormal psychology with a particular emphasis on suicide. His testimony will show the court that the cause of death was almost definitely a suicide. His testimony will show thorough evidence of drug abuse and alcohol that could increase the tendencies of suicide. The testimony of Dr. Levon Helm will also give the court some common causes and signs of depression and how Martin demonstrated those signs throughout his life. Finally, Dr. Levon Helm will show you how the life insurance policy in the song entitled Hanging at Death's Door suggests the cause of death to be suicide. Ladies and gentlemen in the jury, we are all deeply saddened about the death of the great musician Martin Luther King. We may never know precisely how he died, but the evidence we show today will prove that Duke did not kill him and that the death was most likely a suicide. When you have heard the testimony today, you will be asked to make a decision. We ask you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to thoroughly review this case and the materials and find my client not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is the plaintiff ready to call your first witness? Please do so.
The prosecution would like to call Pat Nugent to the stand.
You swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Take a seat, ma'am. Thank you.
Please state your name for the court.
Pat Nugent,
Where do you live?
77 Rockaway Lane in Rockford, New Michigan.
What is your relationship to Martin?
He is my father.
When did you find out he was your father?
Back in 2004,
Where did you meet him?
at a concert.
Did he give you information to use to contact him?
Yes,
What did he give you?
his phone number.
Did you call him after he gave you his phone number?
Yes,
Did he answer your phone call?
yes,
Did he help you at all?
yes,
How did he help you?
He gave me a place to live, and he planned for me to go on tour with him.
How would you describe your relationship with your father?
For only knowing the guy for a short period, we were pretty close.
What were you doing the day your father was murdered?
I was hanging with my friend Alex.
When you got to the house that night, what did you do?
I went into the backyard and I bathed in the pool.
Do you always bathe in the pool like that?
Yes.
Did you see your dad when you got to the house that night?
No.
Did you see anyone else at your dad's house that night?
Yes.
Who did you see?
Duke Osiski.
What was Duke doing when you saw him that night?
He came running out of the kitchen out onto the patio.
Was there anything suspicious about Duke that night?
Yes.
What was suspicious about him?
He was panicked and nervous, and he wasn't supposed to be at the house.
Why wasn't Duke supposed to be at the house?
My father had told him that the tour was canceled.
How did Duke react to that?
He was pretty angry and he stormed off.
Was there any blood on Duke?
Yes.
What did you do next?
I went into the studio.
What did you see when you went into the studio?
I saw my father slumped over the piano.
Did you ever tell Duke to call 911?
Yes.
Did he call 911?
Yes.
Did he help you?
No, he just stayed there.
Did you see a gun?
Yes.
Did you recognize the gun?
Yes.
Have you seen it before? Where have you seen it before?
On Memorial Day.
On Memorial Day, did the defendant tell Marty he was a dead man walking?
Yes.
Pat, what would you have gained from your father dying?
Nothing. The house is going to be donated.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
You don't know if you locked the door the night Martin died, do you?
No.
You could have left it unlocked.
Yes.
Once in the house, you went to the pool, correct?
Correct.
To cool off.
Yes.
1/2 hour later, you were bathing, weren't you?
Yes.
With soap and shampoo, correct?
Yes.
And all of your attention was on your bath, correct?
Yes.
So you couldn't have heard anything, could you?
No.
So you really can't say that you were the only one in the house with Marty, correct?
No.
Your father told you that he was leaving his house instruments to the Save the Music Foundation, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce the proposed Exhibit 6. This is the will of Martin Sirius that states that his home and instruments will go to the Save the Music Foundation, and the Duke will receive nothing if he does not give up ownership of Itso Schizo. Your Honor, I now move for the admission of Exhibit 6 as evidence.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
The exhibit is admitted based upon stipulation.
You were angry about this, correct?
Yes.
Your father then told you that you would be taken care of a million ways, correct?
Yes.
Your father had an insurance policy, yes?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to show you proposed exhibits 4 and 5. They are the insurance application and policy of Martin Lewis Sirius.
Okay.
Your Honor, I now move to admit these as evidence.
Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Based upon stipulation, exhibits 4 and 5 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. You tried to get the benefits from the policy, didn't you?
No.
If I may call your attention to the stipulations. Stipulation number stipulation number 10 states that you presented a certified copy of the death certificate to Heartfelt Insurance Company and demanded payment under the policy. Heartfelt denied payment, citing the suicide exclusion. The next day, you retained counsel to file suit against Heartfelt, but was served with Heartfelt's complaint. Is that not true?
Yes.
So, your father was severely depressed, correct?
Correct.
He even pointed a gun at his own head, correct?
Yes.
You've had to take that gun away from him to stop him from shooting himself, haven't you?
Yes.
So you've handled it before.
Yes.
Your fingerprints are already on it.
Yes.
You didn't know about your father's illness, did you?
No, I did not.
But you did know that the tour was canceled, correct?
Yes.
And that made you angry, didn't it?
Yes.
So angry that you went out to drink that night and stayed at the bar until it closed.
No.
Did you not state that you went out to the bar with Alex Rose?
Yes, I was at the bar, but I didn't want to stay until I became too intoxicated.
All right. Well, the next day, afterward, you went out drinking again, didn't
Yes.
you? Where you've had your frustrations again to Alex Rose.
Yes.
And then you came home, correct?
Yes.
So after 2 days of drinking and out of anger at your father turned up dead, didn't he?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Pat, what would you have gained from your father dying?
Nothing.
No further questions.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may step down. You may call your next witness.
The prosecution would like to call Detective Stephen Tyler to the stand.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial?
Yes, I do.
Take a seat, sir. Thank you.
Could you please state your name for the court?
Detective Stephen Tyler.
And what is your current occupation?
I am the Chief Director of Homicide at the Rockford Police Department.
And what are your job responsibilities?
I investigate crimes from robbery to homicide.
About how many homicides have you investigated?
Several hundred.
So would you say that you are experienced in your job?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, at this time, we ask the court to deem Detective Stephen Tyler an expert in homicide investigations.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
With that stipulation, this witness will be permitted to give expert testimony regarding homicide investigations.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so on the night of May 31st, 2009, did you receive a call of a shooting?
Yes, I did.
And what was the address?
77 Rockaway Lane in Rockford, New Michigan.
And did you go to the scene of the crime?
Yes, I did.
What happened when you arrived?
I went to the back and I noticed that the defendant was standing there conversing with Pat.
And did you see what they were doing in the back?
Pat was just standing there in a bathrobe, and the defendant was standing there very jittery.
So how did the defendant end up in the backyard?
He did not say.
Did the defendant ever say how he entered the home?
He said he entered through the front door.
Did he explain why he left through the back door?
No, he did not.
And did he ever state that he knew Pat was swimming in the pool?
No, he did not.
So what did you notice about the appearance of these two people in the backyard?
The defendant appeared to be intoxicated. He's very jittery. And Pat had just been swimming, so he was wearing a bathrobe.
And was there anything on the defendant's body?
His right hand had blood on it.
After this, did you go find Martin?
Yes, I did.
And Detective Tyler, were photographs taken at the scene of the crime?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, may I approach the witness with what is marked as proposed exhibits 8, 9, 10, and 11.
May?
Detective, take a few seconds to look at that. Detective, what have I just handed you?
These are photographs of the crime scene.
Now, did these photographs fairly and accurately depict the scene at the first time you saw Martin?
Yes, I would say so.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move for the admission of proposed exhibits 8 through 11, which are photographs of the crime scene.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The exhibits are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, can you please explain what Exhibit 8 shows us?
In Exhibit 8, you can see the defendant lying there, or not the defendant, the deceased, slumped over the piano dead, and the 9mm pistol is clearly laying underneath his right hand.
And what about Exhibit 9?
That is another shot of the deceased slumped over the piano, and the bullet wound is behind his right ear.
Can you please tell us what is in Exhibit 10?
Exhibit 10 is another shot of the 9mm pistol below the deceased,
And Exhibit 11, please.
and this is another close-up of the 9mm pistol on the ground.
So for the 9mm pistol, were any bullet casings found?
No.
And should there have been bullet casings?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. She's leading questions.
Do you have a response?
I don't believe that was a leading question. I wasn't saying correct.
I would agree. I will overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
So should there have been bullet casings?
Yes, typically there is bullet casings with a pistol.
So where were the casings?
I do not know.
Did anyone collect other evidence from the scene?
Yes, we also swabbed for fingerprints, gunpowder residue, and blood.
And did you collect evidence from the defendant and Pat?
Yes, we took fingerprints from the defendant and gunpowder residue, but Pat had been swimming, so we did not.
And what were the results of this?
The defendant's fingerprints were on the gun, and he had a large amount of gunpowder residue on his hands.
And can you explain for the court what gunpowder residue is?
It is fragments from inside the gun from when it is fired, and also sometimes skull fragments if the gun is close enough.
And so you said there was a lot of gunpowder residue on the defendant's hand.
Yes.
So based on your experience, what would the gunpowder on the defendant's hand indicate?
It would indicate that he was holding the gun when it was fired.
And also his fingerprints were on the gun?
Yes.
So based on all the evidence, the blood, gunpowder residue, and fingerprints, what can you conclude about this case?
I conclude that this was a homicide, and by the looks of it, it was the defendant.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Detective Tyler, you take great care of your records, right?
Yes.
Let the reflect, the reflect, the re, let the re, I can't say the word.
The record.
The record show that I'm showing opposing counsel exhibits 8 and 9.
It will?
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm handing you exhibits 8 and 9. Now, if you look at exhibit number 9, there's 4 pills, correct?
Yes.
And in the exhibit number 8, there's 3. Why is there 1 missing?
I have no knowledge of that.
Isn't it because 1 was being tested?
I'm not sure, but that may be a possibility.
And didn't the test later test results show that it was nitrazepam?
Objection. This is leading.
You have a response?
I'm doing a cross. I lead.
She is permitted to lead on cross-examination. The objection is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the witness to retrieve my
You may.
documents? Okay. I would like like to direct your attention to May 31st, 2009. Now, you said you talked to both Pat and Duke, right? At the
Yes.
scene. Okay. You also said Pat seemed unfazed by the death of her father.
Yes, he did seem unfazed.
Duke explained the whole situation, didn't he?
Yes.
Pat just stood there while everything happened, correct?
You could say that.
And Duke made the 911 call.
Yes, he did.
You stated Duke was drunk, correct?
Yes, I believe he was intoxicated.
Did you give him a breathalyzer test? Sobriety test? So you just made an assumption that
From my experience, yes.
you made an assumption that the defendant was drunk. No test, no nothing. Just your assumptions.
From my experience, he appeared to be intoxicated.
So what if he wasn't?
There's a possibility that he was not.
You also didn't swab Pat's hand for gunpowder, did you?
No.
So you basically ruled Pat out altogether.
He had been swimming in the pool, so it would have been washed off.
But there could have been a little trace of gunpowder found on him.
There
Hurt.
could have been.
You learned about the will, correct?
Yes.
Marty was donating everything to Save the Music Foundation, correct?
Yes.
Such as his musical instruments,
Yes.
also his house. Pat didn't like this at all, did he?
No, you're not.
He didn't like it so much that he used pretty strong language, didn't he? He even said, effing saving the foundation, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
The witness may step down, and you may call your next witness.
The prosecution would like to call witness Dr. Aaron Dre to the stand.
Raise your right hand, sir. You swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Have a seat, sir. Thank you.
Would you please state your name for the court?
My name is Dr. Aaron Dre.
What is your current occupation?
I am a chief forensics analyst for the Rockford CPS laboratory.
And who specifically do you work for?
I work for the Rockford Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
I've worked there around 25 years.
Now, Dr. Dre, what does your job consist of at Rockford?
My job consists of performing autopsies and gathering not gathering evidence, but looking at evidence and researching upon the evidence.
Can you tell us about how many autopsies you have performed?
Hundreds, maybe thousands. I kind of lost track by now.
So you're experienced with your profession.
Of course.
How are you trained for your job?
I've been trained through various courses, classes that have been provided to me through other departments of police like FBI and things like that.
And have you been used as an expert witness in the past?
I have.
Your Honor, at this time, we ask the court to deem Dr. Aaron Dre an expert in chief forensic analysis.
Is there any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
He is qualified to give expert testimony in the area of forensic analysis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. J, did you do some forensic testing with respect to evidence retrieved from both the crime scene and the deceased body?
Yes, I
Objection,
did.
Your Honor, leading question.
Do you have a response?
I do not believe this question is leading because he is here and did perform tests on Martin.
It was somewhat leading. I'm going to sustain the objection, just ask you to rephrase.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you encounter any work with Martin Sirius?
Yes, I did.
Did you retrieve evidence from his crime scene?
Did I retrieve evidence? No, but I looked at evidence from the crime scene.
And did you do any testings?
Yes.
Now let's start with the crime scene. What items did you collect?
We collected a 9mm pistol, blood swabs, and I'm sorry, I forgot the last thing we looked at.
Dr. J, did you put together your testing results in the form of a laboratory report?
Yes, we did. Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with proposed Exhibit 3?
You may.
This is my laboratory report.
And you've written that report and done those tests on that report?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, the people move for the admission of proposed Exhibit 3, which is a copy of Dr. J's laboratory report.
Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Focusing on the death of Mr. Martin Sirius, what did you notice while examining him?
When we, the lab, first received the body, it was face down, so you could clearly see the gunshot wound, which was on the back of his head behind his right ear. And yes, that's the main thing we saw when we first got him.
Does that have any significance?
Yes, because if it's a wound like that is back here, that is very hard to like do yourself, and it clearly shows that the person was obviously, his heart and blood was still pumping when he was shot.
So he was alive and not drugged out or drunk when he was shot?
Yes.
Where exactly was Martin shot at?
Martin was shot in the back of his head, behind his back, his right ear.
And were you able to recover any of the bullet that he was shot with?
Yes, we retrieved some bullet from his skull.
Is there any way that Martin drowned in his own vomit?
No, because we did not find any vomit in his throat or lungs.
Now, can you tell us the distance the gun was shot at?
It was fairly obvious that the gun was not shot through direct contact to the skull, so it was, I assume it was from 1 to 6 inches away.
Can you show us how far?
Either for about this far or this far, somewhere between there.
Okay. So since you said the gun was a distance from his head, how were you able to tell that?
I was able to tell due to the blowback that it was not there.
Now, what kind of gun was used?
A 9mm pistol,
Do you know-
semi-automatic.
Do you know how the recoil is on this gun?
The recoil on a 9mm pistol is quite large, and if someone was intoxicated, it would be hard to aim and control the gun at quite a distance at such an awkward angle.
Now, does this gun generally produce a bullet casing?
Yes, it ejects a bullet casing after fired.
So where was the bullet casing?
We did not find a bullet casing.
Okay. So can you explain to the court what a blowback is again?
Blowback is basically when a firearm is fired, and when the bullet either hits the skull or object that has been shot, the stuff from the object that is shot comes back onto the gun and also the person who shot the gun's hand.
So how would that apply to this case?
This applies to the case because there was blood found on the defendant's hand right here, which is how you hold a gun, which we found blowback on.
Was the blood on Martin contacted by anyone else?
Yes, it was contacted by Thomas Duke Osiski.
And where was this residue that you were talking about on the defendant's hand?
The residue was on the top of the hand, as I said, and like how you hold a gun.
Could this possibly be from the blowback?
Absolutely.
So back to the gunshot. Was this location normal for suicide or committing suicide?
Absolutely not. Normally when someone commits suicide, they either shoot themselves in the temple, through the bottom, like right behind their chin, or through the roof of their mouth.
So with your professional and expert opinion, do you think Martin committed suicide?
No, I do not.
So ultimately, with all this, the physical evidence that you have collected, how do you feel about this case?
I feel that the deceased did definitely not commit suicide, and that someone else had to have committed the murder.
Thank you, Dr. Dre. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You did not perform the autopsy, correct?
No, I did not.
And Dr. Shankar found that Martin previously had cancer of the lungs and brain, correct?
Yes, he did.
And at the time of death, he also had a .17 blood alcohol content, correct?
Yes, he did.
And he had trace amounts of nitrazepam in his system, correct?
Yes, his sleeping pills.
The combination of alcohol and nitrazepam can be fatal, correct?
Yes, it can.
It can also make you fall asleep, correct?
Yes, that's what the drug is used for.
So you could say Martin was disorientated before he died, correct?
Yes.
Now, the gun that killed Martin was a 9mm pistol, correct?
Yes, it was.
And the bullet that killed Martin was above and behind his right ear, correct?
Yes, it was.
You said the gun did not appear to be indicative of blowback, correct?
No, it did not.
But there was blowback of blood on the barrel of the gun, correct?
A little bit, yes, because it was close enough to the wound that there would have been blowback.
In blood, along with the blowback of small particles, characterizes blowback, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
And blood, along with the blowback of small particles, characterizes blowback, correct?
Yes, it does.
Small particles such as skull fragments, correct?
Yes.
And brain tissue, correct?
Yeah.
And hair follicles?
Yes.
You mentioned the awkward angle of the gun, the bullet, the entry point, correct?
Yes, I did.
Martin was wearing a hat before he died, wasn't he?
Not that I can remember.
Martin was again shot here above and behind the right ear, correct?
Yes.
And now you said that there was blood on Martin's wrist, correct?
On Martin's wrist, yes.
The blood was smudged, wasn't it?
Yes, it was smudged on his wrist.
And that blood was Martin's, correct?
Yes, the blood was Martin's.
And Thomas had blood on his hand, correct?
Yes.
You found Martin's blood on Thomas's hand after Thomas grabbed Siski's wrist to check his pulse, correct?
Yes.
There were 3 sources of DNA on the gun, correct?
Yes, there were.
Martin's DNA was on the gun, correct?
Yes.
And Thomas's DNA, correct?
Yes.
And there was even an unknown source of DNA, correct?
Yes, there was.
Now you found out that Martin's heart was still beating when the shot was fired, correct?
Yes, we did.
You also found multiple gunpowder grains throughout Martin's body, correct?
Yes, because we assumed that from the dripping of the wound that the gunpowder would have easily been dripping down to his clothes and onto his other body parts.
You found gunpowder grains on the gun, correct?
Yes.
And you found gunpowder grains on his neck, Martin's neck?
Yes, again due to the blood dripping down.
And on Martin's shirt, correct?
Yes.
And on Martin's wrist?
On Martin's wrist, yes.
And at the wound site, correct?
Yes.
Then isn't it possible the gunpowder grains were displaced from the initial wound site?
I believe they were displaced because the blood dripping down would cause the gunpowder that is under the wound to move with the blood flow.
So, say if there was a high concentration of gunpowder grains originally at the wound site, they could have been displaced to other places throughout the Martin's body.
No, because there would have still been a high concentration above the wound where the blood flow would not challenge that.
But you just said the gunpowder grains could be displaced
Yes,
from the entry wound.
Yes, below the wound, but not above the wound.
So this means you cannot rule out a contact shot, correct?
I can rule out a contact shot because there was not enough blowback on the actual gun that is in evidence with other blowback cases.
But the gunpowder grains were still displaced, right?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. So you stated that in virtually all the suicides you investigated that the fatal wound was delivered directly to the temple, forehead, or upward in the mouth, correct?
Yes.
But that doesn't mean all the cases you investigated, correct?
No, because every case is different. There's not all 2 cases are the same.
So this means that it could be a suicide where he shot himself at such an awkward angle, supposedly. because it's not evident in all cases.
I do not believe so, since there was, with his blood alcohol being .17, that's over twice the legal limit, and also with the combination of the sleeping pill for his insomnia he would have been greatly impaired, and he would have been too not able to control his emotions enough to be able to aim, shoot, and be able to control the recoil of the gun.
But if your judgment is impaired, you might not know what you're doing, and if you're just trying to commit a suicide, you could in fact shoot yourself in that awkward region.
Yes, but I believe if you're
Yes or no answer, please.
Yes.
And yet, after all these statements, you still believe that beyond all possible reasonable doubt that the death of Martin was not self-inflicted.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may step down. Any further prosecution witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
And with that, if the defendant has any witnesses, you may present them now.
The defense would like to call Thomas D. Osiski to the stand.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Take a seat, sir. Thank you.
Please state your name for the court.
Thomas Duke Osiski.
Do you know Martin Sirius?
Oh, I've known him for a long time.
How long did you know Martin Sirius?
Well, let's see. Well, he played in my favorite band back in high school called Sirius. I followed them everywhere, and let's see. Basically, he was one of my childhood idols.
Did you ever play in Sirius? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. Actually, I played bass, and I followed them everywhere, so I knew every single one of their songs by heart. And their bass player ended up getting sick, so I auditioned, and I was an easy pick for the job.
Did you continue playing in Sirius?
Yes, I did. We eventually kept playing bigger and bigger venues until we eventually were playing a tour. That's when we became Cirrhosis.
Did you enjoy your time in Cirrhosis?
I loved being in Cirrhosis, especially when we were all together. When we were all together, I made so much less mistakes than when we were apart. I just loved being in it. And not to mention, me and Marty were the best of friends. We were like brothers. But we did have our ups and downs with each other. Sometimes he was a dark person.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he was always preoccupied with death and dying most of the time. And the booze and drugs that came along with being a rock star definitely did not help.
Did you ever notice a change in Marty?
There wasn't a direct change in Marty, but when his family died back on Route 66 in 2003, he became much more vulnerable. And when Pat came into his life, I believe Pat was taking advantage of his vulnerability.
What makes you think that?
Well, Pat came out of nowhere. I mean, one day he wasn't there, the next day he was. Then he moved into his house. And then on top of that, he came in and wanted to do a tour with him. And of course I was half a Cirrhosis, so I wanted to join in on it too. But he didn't want to have anything to do with me. He absolutely did not want me on the tour.
What happened with the tour?
Well, Marty was all good with it eventually, but then he canceled it out of the blue, which made me a little bit angry.
Were you aware that Marty had cancer?
No, I wasn't. I had absolutely no clue Marty had cancer.
Were you? Oh.
I mean, if I would have known he would have had cancer, there is no way I would have bothered him so much about the tour. I really, really cared about him. He was a brother to me.
Were you aware that your friend had been informed by a doctor to cancel the tour?
No, I wasn't. Oh, man, if I would have known that, there was no way I would have pestered him so much about the tour. I mean, I really do care about him. He was like the brother I never had. And the debate we had Memorial Day would not have been so heated if I would have known that.
What happened on Memorial Day?
Well, I went over to his house to try to talk to him one more time about going back on the tour. But he was really, really, really drunk that day. And he was not in a stable state of mind. He was acting crazy. He was waving a gun around, and he was pointing it at his head, miming shooting himself.
What happened next?
Well, Marty passed out and I took the gun away from him. I absolutely did not want anything happening to him. Like I said, I really, really cared about him. And it's like I would not want to lose my brother. So I took the gun away from him and I gave it to Pat because I knew Pat had lived there and knew the house better than I had. And I was absolutely afraid of guns, so there's no way I would want to take it.
Did you trust that Pat would put it in a safe spot?
Yeah, I kind of did, but, I mean, I don't really trust Pat, but at that moment, I really didn't want to go with the gun, and I just knew that he knew the place better than I did, and so he would be able to hide it from Marty, where Marty could not get it and do something he would regret.
When was the next time you saw the gun?
On May 31st, when I found Marty's body.
You found Marty's body?
Yes, I did. I went over to on May 31st, I went over to his house to try to talk to him one more time about the tour because previous time he wasn't in a stable mind state. And I also wanted to apologize for Memorial Day because that was not very good. And I went to the house and the door was open. So I said hello, but no one was there. So I just figured he was in his studio. So I went in there and I saw him passed out on the piano.
What happened next?
Well, I saw him passed out on the piano and I figured, he just passed out for drinking too much or he was too tired. So I went up, put my hand on his shoulder and, nudged him, said, "Wake up, Sleeping Beauty." Don't know how many times I've done that before on our previous tours. He passed out a lot, so. But this time his body was limp. And so I instinctively grabbed his wrist to check his pulse. But I wanted to see if he was still alive. But there was absolutely no pulse. And so I ran outside to call 911, and that's when I saw Pat naked washing off in the pool.
Going back to inside where you found Marty's body, did you notice anything else in the studio besides Marty's body?
Yes, I did. I happened to see a bottle of Jack Daniels, some sleeping pills, and the lyrics to one of Marty's new songs called Hanging at Death's Door that he was writing. That to me seemed like a very, very bad combination.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Marty had always done drugs and booze, so I figured he might have OD'd. But when I saw the lyrics Hanging at Death's Door, that's when I thought, oh my God, Marty killed himself. And that was so sad for me. And I lost my brother. I went and told Pat about it, but when we both went back in the room, Pat had absolutely no reaction whatsoever when it came to seeing his father laying there. I mean, it was his father. I at least would have expected some sort of either shock or sadness, but nothing. And that's what made me raise some questions about not only Pat, but I also wondered, how did Marty get the gun?
As far as you know, Pat had the gun last.
Yes, I gave it to him Memorial Day.
Had you been drinking that night?
No, I had not.
Right. No, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
So you and Martin were band members, correct?
Yep, since high school.
So you've known each other for a while, right?
Yeah, we were like brothers.
And isn't it true that the two of you didn't always see eye to eye?
We had our ups and downs, but we always got along really well.
But you had arguments?
Occasionally, yes.
And you were in an argument right before his death, correct?
Yes, we were.
And you were at Martin's house Memorial Day weekend, correct?
Yes, I was.
And yes or no, did Martin have a 9mm pistol that you took out of his possession?
Yes.
And didn't you leave with the gun?
I did not leave with the gun. I gave it to Pat.
But Pat testified under oath that you left with the gun.
I did not leave with the gun.
So, but you returned to Martin's home on the night he was murdered because you were angry that he canceled the tour, right?
I wanted to go talk to him, but I wanted to apologize for Memorial Day too.
But you went to his house to try to persuade him into the tour?
And to apologize, yes.
And you had been drinking alcohol on May 31st, correct?
No, I had not.
But Detective Stephen Tyler stated that you smelled strongly of alcohol and appeared intoxicated. So is he lying?
I had absolutely drank no alcohol that night. I was not intoxicated.
So you're saying that the detective is lying?
No. Well, maybe there's other ways I could have gotten alcohol on me. I spilled some on me.
You probably spilled some on you?
I don't know. He said I reeked of it, so could have been multiple ways which I could have gotten it on me. I was not intoxicated that night. I'm not lying to you right now. I'm being completely honest to you.
And so Martin canceled the tour, correct?
Yes, Martin canceled the tour.
And this tour was very important to you, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And you were having financial problems, correct?
Yes, I was somewhat financially strapped.
And isn't it true that your home is in foreclosure?
Yes.
And you have $150,000 in credit card debt?
Yes, I did.
And you owe child support to multiple women, right?
Objection,
women.
Your Honor, relevance.
So your
This goes
response?
to the credibility of the witness, trying to show that he needed the money to pay.
If he needed the money so bad, why would he kill Marty?
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. And in fact, you recently filed bankruptcy due to your extensive financial problems, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
So you and Marty made an agreement to do the reunion tour, correct?
Yes, we did.
And this tour was going to make you a substantial amount of money, wasn't it?
A little less than $500,000.
And you were relying financially on this tour to pull you out of your mess, correct?
Yes, I was.
And then Marty told you the tour was off, and this angered you, didn't it?
It made me a little angry, yes, but not mad enough to do anything drastic. I've done it before.
So it sounds to me like it was extremely important to you that Martin not cancel the tour, correct?
Yes, I really wanted, and in addition to that, I really wanted to get back with him because, like I said, he was like my brother. I loved spending time with him.
So now I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I'm only looking for a simple yes or no answer.
Okay.
So yes or no, are you on probation for misdemeanor contempt?
Not currently, no.
Were you on probation for misdemeanor contempt?
Yes.
And yes or no, have you ever had a harassment charge against you?
Yes.
Yes or no, were you convicted of larceny in 2000?
It was a misunderstanding, but yes.
Yes, you were.
Yes.
And yes or no, were you convicted of drunk driving in 2002?
Yes.
Objection. Relevance.
This goes to the credibility of the witness.
It's past the statute of limitations and irrelevant to this case.
This was 2002.
Who's the attorney that's handling this witness?
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Do you have an objection?
No.
Okay.
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
And you told Marty he was a dead man walking, correct?
I was referring to the boozing and pills that he was doing because that kills people.
But you did tell him that?
Yes.
Sweet. So back to the night of Marty's death, you entered the home through the front door, correct?
Yes.
And what happened after you entered the house?
I said hello. No one replied, so I figured he was in the studio, so I went that way.
And you had a phone with you that night, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And when you went into the studio, you thought he was dead, correct?
Yes, I did.
So, but you didn't call 911 immediately, right?
No. The instinctive thing for people to do is check and see if they're alive, especially if it's someone that you loved.
But after that, you didn't call 911 immediately?
I ran back and called 911.
But your friend, who you keep saying is like a brother to you, is dead or dying, and you don't try to call 911 immediately or try CPR?
I did what I thought was instinctive. I grabbed his wrist, checked for his pulse.
And then you didn't call 911?
I was in shock. There was nothing I could. I did what came to mind first.
And you said that you exited through the back door, correct?
Yes, I did.
So your reaction was to leave or flee the scene instead of call 911?
I wanted to see if anyone else was home. I wasn't going to flee the scene.
But you were surprised to see Pat in the back, correct? You didn't know he was there?
Yes, I was very surprised to see him there.
So why would you exit all the way through the back door? You went through the kitchen to the back if your car was parked out front?
I was checking to see if there was anyone else around.
And so it wasn't until you saw Pat and you went back into the studio and he told you to call 911 that you actually called, correct?
I ran out back and called 911.
But you went back in first to check to see if he was with Pat.
I called
before you
911, talked to Pat, and we went back in the room.
And one last question, just a simple yes or no. When the detective arrived, did you have Martin's blood on your hands?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Don't redirect.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down, and you may call your next witness.
Defense would like to call Alex Rose to the stand.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Please take a seat, ma'am. Thank you.
Will you please tell the court your name, miss?
Alex Wallace.
What's your connection to this case, Miss Rose?
I knew Pat since I was 13, and I met the deceased and met Duke.
When did you and Pat meet?
In junior high, we met, started writing music and stuff like that.
What did you do writing music?
Well, we started a band in like high school doing jobs, like dances, parties, other things. And when I was 19, I went and with Pat, it was his idea kind of to go out to a tour, well, go play at bars when he was like 16.
Did Pat ever tell you why you ran away from home?
He had had an awful childhood when she was growing up, and she was in foster care family, and her father insisted to go rock climbing, and he was drunk and fell off and died off the cliff, and the family blamed her for the death and not make her feel any welcome, like she was welcome in the first place.
Rough. How did you meet Martin Sirius?
We were playing at a bar, and someone who worked there came up to us and told us that someone wanted to talk to us. So we went up front, and it was Martin, and told Pat that I had a good singing voice, and Pat said that I got it from you, and Martin didn't believe it at all.
How else did Marty react?
He didn't believe anything, and Pat said his mom died in 1995 of cancer, and Marty shut right up after that.
How did Marty know he was Pat's dad?
He took a polling test.
Did you ever see Pat after Pat moved in with Marty?
I went over to their house over the weekends when they were practicing for the old upcoming tour.
Was there anything strange about Marty?
Well, when they were practicing, we were like kind of drinking, but Marty really drank. He took I see people drink all the time, but Marty actually takes the cake on it.
What happened on Memorial Day?
I showed up later than I wanted to, and I saw Duke going out of the house, like angry, and I came in and Pat told me everything because she wanted to like if I knew, and she wanted me to know everything because I'm like her best friend.
Did anything seem unusual about Duke when you saw him?
No, he was just like angry walking out.
Did Duke appear to have a gun?
No, his hands were like out. I could totally see his hands. It didn't look like he had anything.
What happened on the Saturday before the crime?
Pat called me up all angry, talking about Save the Music Foundation, and we went to a ball until it closed, and we talked.
What did you talk about?
We talked about the old upcoming tour that was canceled then, and that Pat said that the house, the instruments will all go to Save the Foundation, and this police thing, she mentioned that $1,000 million would go to Pat.
Did he mention anything else about this $1 million?
No, this thing's nothing I can remember.
Do you think Duke could have killed Martin?
No. Duke couldn't talk the talk, but he could never do the deed. If Marty died, he probably did it himself.
Thank you. No further questions.
That's only cross-examination.
So you've known Pat Nugent, Marty's child, since you were 13 years old, right?
Yes.
Pat had a pretty rough childhood, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
She grew up in a trailer park, correct?
With a foster family, yes.
So she went through the foster care system, right?
Yeah. Yes.
In fact, when Pat left with her foster family, she left with you, didn't she?
What do you mean? Sorry.
When Pat left her foster family, did she leave with you?
Well, a band. We went on roads.
You both kind of toured the country, didn't you? Playing music in various clubs, correct?
Yes, we did.
Pat and Marty sparked a pretty close father and daughter relationship in a relatively short period of time, am I correct?
Yes.
Marty let Pat move in with him, right?
Yeah.
Marty supported Pat financially, correct?
It looked like it.
And the two had a lot in common in light of their love for music, right?
Yeah, they both love to play music. Because they did going to do a tour.
I'm going to ask you some questions about Saturday. Were you with Pat on that day?
Yes, after she called me up.
You two went to the bar, am I correct?
Yep, until it closed around 2 o'clock.
Besides drinking, did you talk any bit?
Yes, I did.
Did you talk about anything specific?
Save the Music Foundation and a police report thing.
Was Pat optimistic about the possibility of going on tour with her father?
It was canceled then.
But before it was canceled, was Pat optimistic about going on tour?
I don't know. Like, how I sure.
Was Pat at all optimistic about...
Objection. It's outside the scope of the witness's knowledge. She did not know.
Do you have a response?
I was saying another question that did not have to do with the tour.
Can you ask your question, please?
Was Pat optimistic about their future together?
Maintain your objection?
Yes, again, she's not in Pat's head. She can observe, but she doesn't know what Pat's feelings were.
Do you have a response to that?
May I restate the question?
Yes.
So Pat was excited about having a father, and was he very...
She seems like excited.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense would like to call Dr. Levon Helm to the stand.
Raise your right hand, sir, please. Do you swear and affirm that you will testify in accordance with the rules of the mock trial tournament?
I do.
Take a seat, sir. Thank you.
Would you please state your name for the court?
My name is Dr. Lee Van Helm, PhD.
What kind of experience do you have to testify in this court today?
I have obtained my PhD in abnormal psychology from the University of New Michigan, and I am board certified in my field.
Why were you summoned to court today?
I was summoned by Heartfelt Insurance Agency to give my expert opinion on the death of Martin Sirius.
Do you have any other acknowledgments?
I have written and published many articles for the American Journal of Psychology on Death and Dying, and have written and published a book entitled I Wasn't Kidding When I Said Life Sucks.
What is that book about?
The book helps people identify suicidal signs in their loved ones before it's too late.
Do you specialize in anything specific?
My focus is on depression as it relates to suicidal tendencies in a person.
Have you worked with the Heartfelt Insurance Company before?
I've worked with Heartfelt on about 50 or so cases.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to move to admit Dr. Levon Helm as an expert witness in the field of abnormal psychology with an emphasis on suicide.
Is there any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
This witness will be permitted to give expert testimony in the area of abnormal psychology.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you do to prepare for this case?
I reviewed what was given to me by the Heartfelt Insurance Company, which was the photographs of the deceased, the application for the insurance policy and provisions, the last will and testament of Martin Sirius, the CPS lab firearms report, ballistics report, DNA and fingerprint analysis, the grand jury testimony of Pat Nugent Sirius, Thomas Osiski, and Detective Steven Tyler. I also reviewed the recording of Hanging at Death's Door and the lyrics of Hanging at Death's Door, the autopsy report, and the toxicology report.
Now, doctor, could you give us some common signs of depression, common causes, for depression?
Common causes of depression can be tragedy, the loss of a loved one, bad news regarding one's health, such as the diagnosis of cancer.
What are some common signs of depression once a person has it?
Common signs of depression can be lethargy, aches and pains, withdrawal from the world, and in some severe cases, self-destructive behavior such as alcohol and drug abuse.
Now directing your attention to the side view photograph of the deceased, would you recognize it if you saw it again?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness to show him what has previously been admitted as exhibit number 9, the side view photograph?
You may.
Let's see. I'm handing you the side view photograph of the deceased, which is marked as exhibit 9. It was previously admitted into evidence, so. Do you notice anything significant about this picture?
I noticed that there's an open bottle of Jack Daniels and an open bottle of a sedative known as nitrazepam.
How is that relevant in determining the manner of death the Martin Lewis used?
Well, when alcohol combined with a sedative such as nitrazepam, it can amplify depression and increase the suicidal tendencies in a person.
While reviewing the materials you were provided, did you find any information about Martin that helped you determine his manner of death?
After reviewing Martin's life, it seemed pretty great. He was a rock star. He had fame and fortune, but he also had tragedy, the loss of his child and wife, and he was also diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Did Martin ever try to get medication for his cancer?
From what I reviewed, Martin did not try to find any help for his cancer. He just withdrew from the world and started abusing drugs and alcohol.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 1?
You may.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm handing you the autopsy report that has been marked as exhibit number 1. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we move the admission of exhibit number 1 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Is there any objection?
No objections.
With that, exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is there a part of this report that is called the toxicology report?
Yes.
Did you find anything relevant about that report?
After reviewing the toxicology report, I found that Martin had cirrhosis of the liver, which proves that he was a heavy drinker over his life. There were trace amounts of nitrazepam in his system, and he had a blood alcohol count of 17%, which, as I said earlier, when alcohol combined with a sedative such as nitrazepam, it can amplify depression and increase the suicidal tendencies in a person.
Was there anything else you reviewed that helped you make an opinion on the cause of death of Martin Lucy, or manner of death, I should say, on Martin Lucy use?
I reviewed the recording of Hanging at Death's Door and the lyrics of Hanging at Death's Door, and it seemed that it was Martin's suicide note.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 7?
You may. Okay.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm handing you the audio recording of Hanging at Death's Door, which has been marked as exhibit number 7. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
So why do you say it seemed like a suicide note?
Well, if you pay attention to the lyrics, shadows fall while voices call me to the other side. It seems that the shadows that are descending upon him is his cancer, and he knows that he can't escape his death. should I stay or should I go and take this lonesome ride? Here it seems he's deciding on whether committing suicide or not. If you find me lying here, don't pick me off the floor. It seems that he's made up his mind. Too much drinking's got me thinking, self-explanatory. I could be hanging at death's door, the place he has decided to go.
Based on all the materials you reviewed prior to this case, did you form an opinion on the manner of death of Martin was serious?
After reviewing the materials given to me and Martin's life, on my expert opinion, I would diagnose that Martin was clinically depressed and he committed suicide.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions. May I approach the witness to collect the exhibits?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
You may cross-examine.
Thank you. Doctor, you are an expert in the field of psychology, correct?
Abnormal psychology, yes.
You do not profess to be an expert in the field of forensic science.
Correct.
You have no experience in wounds, blood, or anything along those lines, correct?
Correct.
As an expert in psychology, you primarily considered the psychological factors in reaching your opinion about this case, correct?
Correct.
Do you agree that it is important to review as much information as possible about a case prior to making your determination?
Yes.
So the more materials, the better.
Yes.
But doctor, I do not see anywhere that you reviewed Dr. Dre's actual grand jury testimony. Is that true?
Correct.
You reviewed his report, but you failed to review his grand jury testimony.
Correct.
That's an important piece of information in this case that you missed. Isn't that true?
I wouldn't say that I missed it because I did review the autopsy report.
But this grand jury testimony ties together the autopsy report. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Regarding the psychological factors that you relied upon, you agree that people react differently to different situations, correct?
Yes.
Unlike a scientific test that the answers are objective and always the same, psychology deals with people who are different and don't always react the same.
Correct.
So you seem to have put a lot of emphasis on the song that Martin was singing and writing when he had died. Is that true?
Yes.
Can we take a look at some of these lyrics?
Yes.
It's your opinion that shadows fall while voices call me to the other side means that shadows and voices are the cancer that he currently has and he's suffering, while the other side means death, right?
Yes.
And you attribute should I stay or should I go and take that lonesome ride to whether he should kill himself?
Or not, yes.
Doctor, is that also consistent with him struggling with the decision about whether he stays and gets cancer treatment or whether he decides not to get cancer treatment?
I would say no because he previously did not try to get medication for his cancer.
But did you write this song?
No, I did not.
So you wouldn't know.
From that aspect, no.
You attribute the term, if you find me lying here, don't pick me off the floor, to having made up his mind. But doesn't that also mean he could make up his mind about not seeking treatment for cancer?
Possibly, yes.
Essentially, he's being asked to be left alone to die and not make any more life-saving measures, correct?
Yes.
You attribute the term, too much drinking's got me thinking I could be hanging at death's door, to the place he has decided to go, meaning taking his life, correct?
Yes.
This is also consistent, again, with allowing the cancer to kill him without treatment. Isn't that true?
Yes.
You know Mr. Martin Sirius, correct?
I do not know him personally, no.
But you've done this report on him, correct?
Yes.
When did you meet Mr. Martin Sirius?
I've never met Martin Sirius.
So you didn't know him prior to his death, correct?
Correct.
This was the first time you've encountered any work related to Martin?
In my field, yes.
You've never observed his behavior in person, have you?
Correct.
So all the information you know about his behavior and that you've reviewed is through word of mouth?
It is through what I have reviewed that was given to me by Hartfeld Insurance Agency.
Okay. Have you considered any of the physical evidence, for example, the gunpowder residue, the blood, in your review?
No, I have not.
Dr. Helm, are you being paid to be here today?
Yes, as I would hope you would be.
In fact, your flat rate is $2,500 a day, isn't that right?
Yes.
And it was an insurance company that retained your services who had underwritten a $1 million insurance policy on Martin?
Yes.
So if suicide, like your opinion says, you save the insurance company $1 million because they don't have to pay in suicidal deaths?
They would not have to pay the money, correct?
Thank you, Dr. Helm. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the witness may step down. No further witnesses on behalf of the defense.
No, Your Honor.
With that, then I'll call upon the plaintiff to make your closing argument.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Hollis Thloniak, and I am representing the state of New Michigan. As we've heard through the evidence and motives today, the defendant is guilty of committing second-degree murder of what was his bandmate, his friend, Mr. Martin Sirius. Ladies and gentlemen, you are reasonable people, and that's why you're here today. We must prove the defendant is guilty beyond reasonable doubt. So let's use our reason and common sense to prove this fact. You hear on the radio that your bandmate and his newly taken-in son are planning a tour, and you've been wanting, yearning to go on tour for this income. Your house is currently on the edge of foreclosure. You are months behind on paying your mortgage payments. You owe money for not one, but 2 credit cards, approximately $150,000 per credit card. Additionally, you have 2 children with 2 separate people and must contribute to their child support. Ladies and gentlemen, what it comes down to is you are practically bankrupt. You are depending on a tour for the income. So you encourage your friend to choose you to go on tour with over his newly taken-in son. Sounds like a pretty nice friend to change in his mind right after he told his son he would go on tour with him. So it's planned. You're going on tour and planning on bringing in $1 million. $1 million. That covers your mortgage payments, your credit card bills, everything that you must owe for. This last chance is your tour. You are depending. You are relying on this tour. How do you feel? Comforted? Relieved? Reassured? Your financial difficulties will be solved. All of a sudden, for no random reason, your friend decides to drop this tour. You needed this tour, this last chance, and now the $1 million is right down the drain. How would you feel? Upset? Mad? Frustrated? Your hope is gone. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to visualize what the defendant went through. In addition, I want you to understand the desperate circumstances he had, what he felt, and ultimately what he did. And what he did was kill Mr. Martin Sirius. Ultimately, these motives prove that he had a reason to feel this way and to make the action of killing his friend. The defendant, after killing Martin, ran not through the front door he came in, but through the house and arrived outside through the back door. He did not call 911. Why do you think he would not call 911 right away? And where was he planning on going? He was not expecting to see Patricia Nugent outside either. The defendant had the 9mm gun, the type of rifle that shot Martin, the gun that killed Martin, when disappearing on May 31st. According to Detective Stephen Tyler, an expert in homicide investigation, the defendant was fidgety, panicking, had a strong smell of alcohol in his breath, and had blood and gunpowder residue on his hand. Drugs and alcohol did not kill Martin, and this was discovered and proved in the autopsy. There were no findings of a bullet casing either. For this gun, it generally produces a bullet casing. A dead man cannot pick up their own bullet casing. According to Dr. Dre, an expert in forensic analysis, there is no presence of vomit in Martin's throat or lungs, so there's no possible way he drowned in his own vomit. And additionally, his heart was still pumping when he was shot. We know that it would have been very difficult for Martin to have shot himself in this spot right behind his right ear. Less of a concentration of powder grains were found on Martin, showing that the gun was a distance from his head. The residue on Martin looks as if it came down his arm while lying in the position he was found at, or possibly from being touched by the defendant. With the recoil after shooting, it would have been practically impossible for Martin to have shot himself. The defendant appeared to have gunpowder and blood on the top of his hand, the area where blowback would generally be found. How would that have gotten there? If he touched to get his pulse, it would have been on his fingertips, not just right here. The defendant clearly had the means and motives to commit this crime, the death of Mr. Martin Sirius. Obviously, the evidence directly pinpoints Martin as the murderer. Duke killed Martin Sirius. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am asking you to make a finding of guilty, a finding for the prosecution. The defendant is guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, you may make your closing argument.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, by the fundamental right of the presumption of innocence until proven guilt, my client stood here at the beginning of this trial a free man. He stands before you now at the end of this trial a free man. In order for a jury in the United States of America to find a man guilty of a crime, it must be proven beyond any reasonable doubt that the man in question committed the crime. In essence, that no other possibility exists as to the commission of the crime at hand, and that the accused is the only possible perpetrator of the crime. The defense has to prove nothing. It's not my job to prove that Thomas Osiski couldn't have killed Martin Sirius, but the prosecution has to carry the burden of proof and provide evidence that Thomas Osiski did in fact kill Martin Sirius. The prosecution in this case has not done so. The prosecution has no hard evidence that it was Osiski and only Osiski that could have killed Sirius. In fact, the prosecution's entire case rests upon the testimony of Pat Sirius as to whether it was Pat, Thomas Osiski, or even Martin that possessed the gun, a testimony that is refuted not only by the accused Thomas Osiski, but by Pat's own best friend, Alex Rose. Alex Rose also has proven that Pat had a troubled childhood with a history of violence, and that in her experience, Osiski does not come across as a murderer. She has also testified under oath that Osiski did not appear to possess the weapon in question on Memorial Day of 2009. That is a reasonable doubt, ladies and gentlemen. Next, even if we temporarily disregard the prosecution's total lack of proof regarding Osiski's possession of the murder weapon, Pat Osiski had 1,000,000 reasons to want his father dead, and those same 1,000,000 to want someone else to take the blame. Pat had just as much of a motive as Osiski, if not more. Pat was drunk, he was angry, and he did not know of the suicide clause of the life insurance policy. Pat could easily have murdered his father and returned to the pool, leaving the door open to allow himself a way out if he became a suspect. Osiski's arrival may have been a happy accident, providing Pat with an opportunity to pass the blame onto someone else. This theory is backed up by the fact that on the recording of Hanging at Death's Door, there's a phone call between Martin and another, followed by Martin seeing someone in the room. Since Osiski was clearly the one on the phone, and the recording had the last moments of Martin's life on it, Osiski could not have been the murderer since he was not present at the house. Who then was the person in the room? Sonny Boy here, that's who. Pat claimed to have only walked by and assumed his father was in the studio. This recording here proves that Pat was at the scene of the crime at the time of the murder. If that's not a reasonable doubt, I don't know what is. Now you may ask, ladies and gentlemen, why this was never questioned during the investigation. It's because the police officer at the scene, Stephanie Tyler, was clearly biased against my client. Being a fan of cirrhosis, and specifically Martin Sirius, no investigation whatsoever was launched into the possibility of Pat Sirius killing his father for the insurance benefits that he attempted to claim after his father's death. That is a botched investigation, ladies and gentlemen, and a very reasonable doubt. Don't forget during your speculations, ladies and gentlemen, that Martin Sirius was mentally ill to a severe degree. He was extremely depressed, not only writing dark music, but even going so far as to point a gun at his own head. Dr. Levon Helm, a distinguished psychologist, has testified before you today that Martin was suicidal and had been since the death of his family almost 10 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no statute of limitations on the death of a loved one. The good doctor testified that Martin's own song, Hanging at Death's Door, shows a severe depression as akin to a suicide note. By taking the trazepam, a sleeping pill, and drinking alcohol, a depressant, together, he shows his outlook on life to be very grim, and rightly so. Would you not be depressed if you were going to die of cancer in 3 months? Martin could have decided to end it all right there. Has the prosecution proved that he didn't? No. Surely, there is a reasonable doubt when one considers the possibility of suicide. In retrospect, it is clear that there are considerably large holes in the prosecution's case and gargantuan reasonable doubts as to their theory. Is there any evidence? No. Is there a clear killer? No. Osiski could have killed him. It's not my job to prove otherwise. But so could Pat, Martin himself, or anyone who happened to walk into the door left open by Pat. I cannot prove my client's innocence, but the prosecution sure can't prove his guilt. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is enough to secure for my client an acquittal. For that reason, I ask you to deliver a verdict of not guilty.
Thank you, counsel. Is there time for rebuttal? 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to mention again, why would Pat kill Martin? He would have not benefit, or she would have not benefit at all in this case from killing Martin. She would have gotten nothing. There's no reason why she would want it. Also, we have lots of evidence in this case that it was Duke that killed Martin. I want to point out again that there was no bullet casing found, and a dead man cannot pick up his own bullet casing. We know that the detectives searched long and hard throughout the house for a bullet casing, and one was not found. Also, I want to mention that Tom could have been on his cell phone when he was calling while Martin was recording. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. All right, you guys are done. We're going to just step out for just a few minutes and complete these scoring sheets, and we'll be right back with you. Okay, well, it's all done. You're gonna get some good sleep tonight. Well, thank you very much. Again, just a wonderful round. You guys worked very hard. It was obvious how much time and effort you put into that. So we definitely appreciate that, and we are hopeful that both of you could go on to regionals and perhaps even farther. So we definitely want to give you some information to perhaps use in the future. So we will start with the scoring judges. Judge Strummers, if you could make some comments.
Excellent job. You all did a really good job. And you seniors, I'm sure you're going to use these skills as you go on to college. So, congratulations to you for doing and participating. I think it's been a great lesson for you, and I think it'll carry with you. And for the students that aren't going on, I hope you come back, because every year, you get better and better and better. So I do hope you continue to participate. I do want to give some compliments, though. Madison, your opening was very good, very good. I thought it was very concise. You had good inflection. You were clear. You didn't talk too fast. And that's what you have to do if you go on to regionals. Try to slow down, get to the points you want to get to, and it was very, very good. And I have to say, Madison, too, your admission of the photographic evidence was textbook. That's how we do it. It was right on, spot on. And the third thing I want to comment was your cross-examination of the defendant was very effective, very effective. That's what you see in courtrooms. That's what we try to elicit from on cross. You got the defendant to admit he probably smelled like alcohol. That can make and break a case, things like that. So you did an excellent job. Dr. Vaughn, Brendan, it was really funny when you said, yeah, I'm getting paid, as well are you. That stuff happens in the courtroom. I seen Dr. Werner Spitz say it almost identical to you did when he got asked that very question. And he's the forensic pathologist that testified in the O.J. Simpson case. It was identical. So that funny stuff does happen. I had to laugh when you said that. So, and it also showed that you were really listening to the question rather than just, going from the script. So it was very funny, and I appreciated that. Alex and Hollis, your closings were very good. And closings are very important because they tie in all the key facts that you want to tell. So, and you both had very good closings, so I congratulate all of you.
Judge Davidson?
I agree. Both opening statements were very well organized, very good eye contact, spelled everything out, what you were going to prove, and it sometimes the opening statements sound like closing statements, and they find them guilty, when really you haven't even started yet. So that's kind of a good thing, is to think of your opening statement, because you have these ignorant jurors who don't know anything. And so the job of the opening statement is to give them kind of a roadmap of where is this case going to go, and where is it going to go. And you both did that very well. Some of the earlier rounds today, the opening statements did sound more like closing statements. Let's see. I guess just a couple of really outstanding things I saw was Hollis in that same cross-examination of Dr. Vaughn. I thought you did a great job of giving him the alternative lyrics, interpretations of lyrics, and you really kind of painted him into a corner. And I think you really did a good job of kind of neutralizing his testimony about this had to be a suicide. It even made me think, maybe it was whether he should have gone on the tour or not too. I mean, where could that have gone? And you really kind of gave him the suggestions he couldn't really deny. So I thought that was very good. In general, I thought it was interesting because when I was reading through the materials, I got a big kick out of that whole argument about who was the author of It's So Schizo. And all the rounds we had today, nobody really played on that, And here are these proud artists with the big egos, and somehow I thought that could have been worked into, a motive factor, for, maybe having the old partner kill his partner because he wouldn't acknowledge that he helped write the song, but that's just me. But anyway, I thought you did a really great job, and good luck, and may the best team win.
Sheriff?
Well, great job, both teams. As a law enforcement officer, my perspective is only as a witness. That's what we do. We don't sit in the chair as a prosecutor nor as a defense attorney, so that's what I'll critique. And please, take these on for your districts and if you come back next year. But a couple things to keep in mind, Kelly, Eric, Travis, make eye contact with the jury. Have some projection. Know those reports inside and out. If you know your report inside and out, you're going to be confident. It's normal to be nervous. Everybody's nervous. Veteran cops are nervous. We can expect you to be nervous, but the better you know the report, the more confidence you're going to have. And look at that jury, give them some nonverbal, show that confidence that you know your report, you know what's going to be asked of you. You're basically bulletproof if you know your report when you go on the stand. Zach, great job on the stand. Thought you did an outstanding job. Paula, very good cross-examination, especially locking in the yes and no questions. I know from being on the witness stand, I hate that when I want to say a little more, just yes or no. And you always have another half of the question, but a good defense attorney is never going to let you get that out. So great job on that. The closings I thought were very well, especially Hollis. It's obvious you had your timing down. I watched the paddle go up. You talked, I was counting in my head whether you were going to go over. You had another 30 seconds left, timed it perfectly, and came back up again. I thought that was a great use, both of your time, and very, very good closing. So two very well-matched teams, and good luck to you two.
First of all, Team 14, the defense, last year you were in a courtroom that we judged in too, and I got to tell you how much improved you are just from last year to this year, and I think that's fantastic, each of your elements. And so I don't know how old you are, but I hope you come back next year and really knock it out of the park next year too. So on some of the specifics, I'm going to but compliment Hollis on three elements. First of all, on the point that's already been made about the doctor's assertion that, well, you're being paid here too. I thought you did great to just ignore the laughter and move on and don't even give him any attention to it. A lot of people, a lot of lawyers in particular, can get flustered by that and feel it as attack, but you didn't. You just let it roll right off you and kept on going. You also made a great recovery on the objection on the leading question. Judges aren't always right, and the judge sustained the objection on the leading question and asked you to rephrase it. And I could tell you said that she's wrong, and you recovered very well and moved on and answered it great. And then in your closing, I liked your phrases of reasonable people, common sense, and the visualization of it. I think jurors really appreciate lawyers who can describe a scene, tell a story. So good job.
All right, congratulations, everybody. Just a few highlights to hit here. Hollis, I thought you had a very good presence in the courtroom, and your pace was very good. You let the witness, answer, let us soak in the witness's answer before you asked your next question. And also on your cross-examination of Dr. Helm, I also thought you did a good job of bringing out the alternative meaning of the song lyrics. That's something that we hadn't really seen before in other teams today. Brennan as Dr. Helm, very good job, very believable as a psychologist. And the closing arguments, excellent.
First of all, I'd like to commend you all and thank you all for taking the time to do this, because this wasn't available when I was going to Port Huron Northern High School. And if it would have been, I probably would have been too scared to participate in the program. You guys have demonstrated great courage, and you will look back on this someday. Probably you might remember it, you might not, but it might dawn on you, say, oh, I remember that mock trial thing that we did. And it might be in whatever career you're going to do or wherever you're going to head, and you'll look back on it, and there will be some part of this that you'll remember, and you'll say, I'm really glad I did this. You might be lawyers, you might be doctors, you might be school teachers, you might be whatever, but this will benefit all of you in some way in your future. I'm confident of that. By this stage in the program, everybody's got a good handle on what the issues are, and so I'm not going to talk about that. I have a few individual comments. Madison, I thought your opening was great. I thought you had nice presence. You were really clear. You made some really good points. You were very well organized. Alex, I thought you made a real nice job on the impeachment issue when, and I don't know if she was lying to you on purpose or not, but you knew that what she was saying up there wasn't right, and you knew where to go and find it in the record. It was on that stipulated fact stuff, and you went back and found it. You knew where it was. You didn't waste time, and you made a really good point, and it made the witness look bad, and that was excellent. I thought that was great. James, I was really impressed. You were the first one today that did something that I was kind of waiting for people to do, and that is to not give up on this whole suicide thing. I think it's a tough argument for the defense. It's a really tough argument. But you hung in there, and yes, it's not likely. Yes, it's not typical to commit suicide in this fashion, but nobody on this record is willing to rule it out and say it can't happen. I mean, this guy's drunk. He's doing pills. That makes him a bad shot. Who knows? He's got the gun back here, and he pulls the trigger before he thinks he's ready to do it. And you wouldn't give up on it, and you hung in there, and you got that witness to basically say those things. I can't rule out that he didn't shoot himself in the head. So I thought that was really good. Same thing, Madison. It's already been mentioned on your cross. My notes were feisty and aggressive. You did a really nice job. You got away with some good impeachment stuff. They should have objected. They didn't. They allowed you to get away with it. And when you get away with it, you run with it. You make every point you possibly can. Brennan, great job. I thought you were an excellent witness. You were the first one today that actually convinced me of that argument. The other ones just were kind of wishy-washy. It's a tough spot to be in. I got to admit, though, on cross-examination, she got you a little bit. We were all sitting here very impressed when you memorized all of the words to the song or whatever it was. I was saying, wow. But then she took those words and turned those around and made you eat them. So she did a really nice job with that. So, Hollis, I made some great comments on your cross-examination as well. You went right to the heart of that expert testimony. That's what you need to do. It was really good. Both closings were outstanding. It's already been said. Good job, guys.
Thank you. I'll ask our Deputy Fleming, our bailiff. Do you have something you'd like to say?
Just real quick, eye contact was good, tone was good. You gotta know your tone controls the room. Just like in police enforcement, tone of my voice, I could be nervous as heck, but the tone of my voice creates what I want done. The only other thing I would like to say, I was thinking the exact same thing Mr. West was when I was sitting up here. Without giving up my age too much, graduated Port Huron High in '89. I took law classes then. That's all you had was a textbook. I think it was Mr. Lutz. I'd have to ask Mr. Fair if it was Mr. Lutz that taught that class. That's all you had. You just had a book. You didn't have all this. Like he said, take this, run with it, improve on it. The more confidence you guys get in doing with people, talking yourself, talking it out. Part-time, I'm a part-time umpire for high school baseball. I think it was the greatest thing that I ever did before I started here. It gave me confidence of getting my opinion across to people. Everybody doesn't think you're right. Have got 2 jobs right now that I'm only right half the time. So with that, good luck the rest of the way if you guys go on.
Thank you. Thank you to our bailiff. And I really have to echo a lot of what was just said, because it really has been a very impressive round, as we did say, we've seen so many of you guys do this, and how you were maybe a couple of years ago, much more meek and mild, and how you're developing. So I really appreciated the opportunity to see you today. Especially in this particular round, it seemed like we had a lot of distractions. The door slammed at one point, and there were flashes going off, and I didn't see it I think it fazed me more than it fazed any of you, because you were very focused, and that only comes because you know what you're doing, you know the materials, and you're prepared. And that definitely puts you in a position to do a wonderful job. Just a couple things, and so much of it's been said, so I'm going to try not to repeat things that were already said. One thing about this round that I felt stood out for me from some of the others were, it's clear that it's all scripted, that your witnesses and yourselves have these scripted lines, but particularly, Caitlin, I was noticing when you were just starting right off with the first witness, although it's scripted, your pace is good. Because when you're reading off those lines, you have to be so careful that you're not, for you to read it and say it is faster than if you were just to conversationally say it. And so many people today have been running through these index cards and running through their scripts, and jurors can't absorb what's being said. But the pace today, or in this round, has been excellent in that regard, that although there was a lot of material and you're looking at the bailiff with the stopwatch, you definitely got that information out at a pace that was understandable. Paula, I thought you made a great point with the detective about the pill being missed in the picture. But what was interesting about that was then you gave him the answer about why it wasn't there. And I wanted you to hammer him a little bit more about that. This is your scene. You're the officer in charge. Here's a pill, here's no pill. What happened to it? And if he's sitting there going, I don't know what happened to it. I mean, that's a huge point for the defense. And then you said it was taken to be tested, right? And so even though, again, you've got that script and that was the next question, but that's where you maybe want to deviate away from it and say, no, the better point to be made is maybe my officer didn't know, or I can capitalize on the part that maybe I can say this investigation was compromised. So look for those opportunities by listening to the answers you get and thinking about your strategy. How does this play into the strategy? Every single answer you get. There were a couple missed objections. I can't remember exactly with the defendant who was cross-examining, but how many times did he say that the victim was like a brother to him? He was like a brother to me. Okay, he was like a brother to me. That was because he was able to give a lot of narratives, which you ran with. You were a great witness, and if you're a witness, you're going to want to do that if you can get away with it. But you definitely want to put a stop to it when it doesn't fit, if it's not fitting with your strategy. Although, actually, it was Madison. Madison, you did a wonderful job then with the alcohol question. Because it came down to, so the detective is lying, and he's like, well, okay, maybe it spilled on me, and of course that sounds, maybe this really large amount of alcohol spilled on me. That wasn't the only option, that the detective's lying. Maybe the detective's mistaken, but you pushed it, and you said, so the detective's lying, and he kind of didn't know what to do with that. So I really felt like all of you listened to what was happening and were prepared, and just keep brushing up on that part. Alex, I felt your pain with the priors when the questioning was going into the defendant's priors, and you wanted to object. That is an objectionable area, so you definitely want to. I have to tell you, I've done this for a few years now, and this was the most complex mock trial problem I've seen. And I was commenting with the other judges earlier that I think this is a trial problem that they would use in law school, not necessarily in high school. So I tell you these things recognizing that it took me a year in law school to learn evidence. And so then, but to be able to make the objection based upon, what rule of evidence, is this improper character evidence? So, but keep brushing up on that stuff, because that's really where you're going to be able to stand above your competitor in the future. And again, Hollis, with the lyrics, the same thing with Dr. Helm, who was so strong at that point, who came off so well and he knew those facts and he knew those details. And you didn't bother with any of the other stuff, not the forensic stuff, not the medical records. All you said was, let's talk about this song. And you formed a conclusion about this song. And couldn't you just as easily have formed another one? And that point, in a nutshell, is all you needed to do to completely discredit him as a witness. So that's precisely what this competition is about, when you have such a small window of time to be able to zero in on what you need to do, whether it's your opening, closing, and get in there and do that. And you guys did that. Awesome openings, awesome closings, each and every one. So I really, I have to thank you for taking the time and working as hard as you have. And I'm going to stop talking so that you all can call it a day and head over for the award ceremony, because you really should start to celebrate now.